The night that changed everything. Champagne glass shattered against the marble floor, sending crystal fragments dancing across the polished surface like scattered diamonds. Emma Rodriguez froze, her heart pounding as hundreds of pairs of eyes turned toward her. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the soft classical music that suddenly seemed too loud in the grand ballroom of the Metropolitan Hotel. What happened next would become the most talked about moment in high society circles for months to come. But nobody could have predicted the shocking revelation that was about to unfold. Emma knelt quickly, her hands trembling as she began gathering the sharp pieces. At 23, she had learned to make herself invisible at these elite gatherings, working as part-time catering staff to support her ailing mother and younger brother back in their cramped apartment in Queens. The midnight blue gown she wore wasn't even hers, borrowed from her roommate, who worked at a vintage clothing store. "Look at this mess," came a sharp, cutting voice from above. Emma looked up to see Veronica Ashworth, the mayor's daughter, standing with her circle of perfectly manicured friends. Veronica's emerald dress probably cost more than Emma earned in 6 months. They really should be more careful about who they let serve at these events. The other women giggled, their laughter like ice water down Emma's spine. She kept her head down, focusing on the glass fragments, hoping the humiliation would end quickly. The Children's Hope Foundation Gala was one of the city's most exclusive charity events, and she knew she didn't belong among these people who discussed stock options over appetizers and donated thousands of dollars without blinking. "I mean, seriously," Veronica continued, her voice carrying across the nearby tables. "Look at that dress. Did she find it at a thrift store?" The circle of women erupted in cruel laughter, and Emma felt her cheeks burn with shame. Several other guests had stopped their conversations to watch the spectacle unfolding. "Maybe she should stick to cleaning bathrooms instead of serving drinks," added another woman with platinum blonde hair and a voice like broken glass. "At least then she couldn't embarrass herself in public." Emma's vision blurred with unshed tears as she continued cleaning, her hands now shaking so badly she could barely grip the fragments. She wanted nothing more than to disappear, to run from this glittering world where she would never truly belong. The overtime money from tonight would help pay for her mother's medication, but right now, no amount of money felt worth this humiliation. Just as Emma reached for the last piece of glass, a shadow fell across her. She looked up to see a pair of expensive black leather shoes, perfectly polished and undoubtedly Italian. Her gaze traveled upward, taking in a perfectly tailored tuxedo that fit like it had been made by master craftsmen. When her eyes finally reached the man's face, her breath caught in her throat. He was tall, easily over 6 feet, with dark hair that looked like he had just run his fingers through it. His jaw was strong and defined, and his eyes were the most striking shade of green she had ever seen. But it wasn't his devastating good looks that made her heart skip a beat. It was the way he was looking at her, not with pity or disgust, but with something that looked almost like recognition. "Allow me," he said, his voice deep and commanding as he knelt beside her. Without hesitation, he began helping her gather the remaining glass fragments, his expensive suit jacket brushing against the floor. The entire ballroom seemed to hold its breath. Veronica's laughter died immediately. "Mr. Blackstone," she stammered, her voice suddenly sweet as honey. "You don't need to do that. The staff will clean it up." Daniel Blackstone. Even Emma knew that name. At 35, he was one of the youngest billionaires in the country, having built a technology empire that revolutionized how people communicated across the globe. His face graced magazine covers and business journals regularly. What was he doing? Helping her clean up broken glass? The staff? Daniel's voice remained calm, but there was an edge to it that made several nearby guests shift uncomfortably. He stood slowly, placing the glass fragments on a nearby tray, then extended his hand to help Emma to her feet. When their skin touched, Emma felt an electric shock run through her entire body. "Yes, well, accidents happen," Veronica continued nervously, clearly not understanding the dangerous shift in atmosphere, "though perhaps next time they should hire more qualified people for such an important event." Daniel's green eyes never left Emma's face as he spoke. "You're absolutely right, Veronica. They should definitely be more careful about who they invite to these events. His words carried a weight that made the socialite's smile falter. Emma found herself staring into Daniel's eyes, completely mesmerized. Up close, she could see flecks of gold in the green, and laugh lines that suggested he wasn't always as serious as his business reputation implied. There was something else there too, something that made her feel like he was seeing straight through to her soul. "What's your name?" he asked quietly, his voice meant only for her. "Emma," she whispered, barely able to find her voice. "Emma Rodriguez." "Emma," he repeated, as if testing how it sounded. Then, to her complete shock and the gasps of everyone within hearing distance, he took her hand and raised it to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to her knuckles. The gesture was old-fashioned, romantic, and completely unexpected. "Daniel Blackstone," he said formally, as if she might not know who he was. "And I have to say, Emma Rodriguez, you are absolutely beautiful." The ballroom erupted in whispers. Veronica's face had gone pale beneath her carefully applied makeup. Emma felt like she was living in a dream, one that was too wonderful to be real and too terrifying to be fake. "I was hoping," Daniel continued, his voice carrying across the now silent room, "that you might honor me with a dance." Emma's mind went completely blank. A dance? With Daniel Blackstone? In front of all these people who had just been mocking her? It was impossible, surreal, and yet his hand was still holding hers, warm and steady, and completely real. I don't know how to dance like they do," she admitted, gesturing toward the elegant couples waltzing across the marble floor. Daniel's smile was like sunrise breaking through storm clouds. "Then I'll teach you," he said simply. "That is, if you'll let me." As he led her toward the dance floor, Emma caught a glimpse of Veronica's expression. The woman looked like she had swallowed something bitter, her perfect facade cracking to reveal the ugly jealousy beneath. Other guests were staring openly now, some with curiosity, others with shock, and a few with barely concealed envy. The orchestra seemed to sense the moment, shifting into a slower, more romantic melody. Daniel placed one hand on Emma's waist, and took her other hand in his. He was right about teaching her within moments. She found herself moving gracefully across the floor, guided by his confident lead. "Why?" she whispered, as they danced, the question that had been burning in her mind since the moment he knelt beside her. "Why what?" he asked, spinning her gently. "Why are you doing this? You could dance with anyone here. You could have any woman in this room." Daniel's expression grew serious, and he pulled her slightly closer. "Maybe I don't want any woman in this room," he said quietly. "Maybe I want the one woman who has something real in her eyes instead of dollar signs." Emma felt her heart stutter. "You don't even know me." "I know enough," he replied, his green eyes never leaving her face. "I know you work hard for people you love. I know you have dignity, even when others try to take it from you. I know you're beautiful inside and out. What else do I need to know?" As the song ended, Daniel didn't step away. Instead, he leaned closer, his lips near her ear. "Emma Rodriguez," he said, his voice so quiet only she could hear. "Would you like to get out of here?" Emma's pulse raced. Everything logical in her mind screamed that this was insane, that billionaires didn't rescue cleaning girls and sweep them off their feet. But looking into Daniel's eyes, she saw something she had never seen before in her life. Possibility. "Yes," she whispered back, surprising herself with her boldness. Daniel smiled, the expression transforming his entire face. He took her hand and began leading her toward the exit, past the staring faces and whispered conversations. As they reached the ballroom doors, he paused and turned back to address the room. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice carrying easily across the space, "I'd like you all to meet someone very special. Someone who reminds me what real class actually looks like." The last thing Emma saw before the doors closed behind them was Veronica Ashworth's face, twisted with rage and disbelief. But Emma no longer cared about the cruel socialite or her circle of friends. For the first time in her life, she felt like she was exactly where she belonged. The impossible proposal 3 days later, Emma still couldn't believe what had happened at the gala. She kept expecting to wake up from the most vivid dream of her life, but the memory of Daniel's hand in hers, the warmth of his smile, and the way he had looked at her, like she was the only person in the room, remained startlingly real. She was restocking supplies in the hotel's maintenance closet when her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Emma, this is Daniel. Would you have lunch with me today? I have something important to discuss with you." Her hands trembled as she read the message twice, then 3 times. Part of her wondered if this was some cruel joke orchestrated by Veronica and her friends, but the memory of Daniel's genuine kindness made her dismiss that fear. She typed back, "I get off work at 2 p.m. Perfect. I'll pick you up." Emma spent her lunch break in the hotel bathroom, trying to make her uniform look presentable and wondering what Daniel Blackstone could possibly want to discuss with her. When she walked outside at exactly p.m., she found him waiting beside a sleek black car, dressed casually in dark jeans and a white shirt that probably cost more than her monthly salary. "You came," he said, and she could hear genuine relief in his voice. "You asked," she replied simply. Daniel opened the car door for her, a gesture so thoughtful it made her heart flutter. "I thought we could go somewhere quiet where we can actually talk." 20 minutes later, they were sitting in a small cafe in Brooklyn, far from Manhattan's glittering towers and the world where Daniel usually moved. He had chosen a corner booth that afforded them privacy, and Emma found herself studying his face in the afternoon sunlight streaming through the windows. "Emma," Daniel began, his hands wrapped around a coffee cup, "I need to tell you something, and I hope you'll hear me out before you decide I'm completely insane." Emma's stomach fluttered with nervousness. "Okay, need to get married," he said bluntly. "Not because I want to, but because of a clause in my grandfather's will. If I'm not married by my 36th birthday, which is in 4 months, I lose control of my company to my cousin Richard." Emma stared at him, trying to process what he was saying. "I don't understand. You could marry anyone. There must be dozens of women who would say yes immediately." Daniel's laugh was bitter. "That's exactly the problem. Every woman in my social circle wants to marry Daniel Blackstone, the billionaire. They want the money, the status, the lifestyle. None of them want to marry me. Just the idea of what I represent." He leaned forward, his green eyes intense. "But you didn't even know who I was when I helped you with that glass. You looked at me like I was just a man being kind to another human being. Do you have any idea how rare that is in my world?" Emma felt heat rise to her cheeks. "Daniel, I'm flattered, but I'm not the kind of person who belongs in your world. What happened at the gala was like a fairy tale, but fairy tales aren't real. What if they could be?" Daniel reached across the table and took her hand. "Emma, I'm not talking about a real marriage. I'm talking about a business arrangement. A contract marriage that would last just long enough for me to secure my inheritance." Emma pulled her hand back, shocked. "A fake marriage?" "Not fake," Daniel said quickly. "Legal, official, but temporary. I would pay you $500,000 upfront, plus all living expenses, healthcare for you and your family, and another $500,000 when we divorce after 18 months. The numbers swirled in Emma's head like confetti in a windstorm. $1 million. It was more money than she could earn in 20 lifetimes at her current job. Her mother could get the surgery she needed. Her brother could go to college. They could move out of their tiny apartment and into somewhere safe. "Why me?" she whispered. "Because you're honest," Daniel said simply. "Because you won't fall in love with me and complicate things. Because you need the money for real, important reasons. Not for designer handbags and luxury vacations. And because when I look at you, I see someone with integrity who won't try to take advantage of the situation." Emma's mind was reeling. "This is crazy. People don't just offer $1 million to strangers." "I'm not offering it to a stranger," Daniel said quietly. "I'm offering it to the woman who showed more grace under pressure in 5 minutes than most people show in a lifetime. I'm offering it to someone I trust." "You don't even know me," Emma protested. "I know enough," Daniel replied, echoing his words from the dance floor. "I know you work 3 jobs to support your family. I know you're studying for your nursing degree at night. I know you have 2 younger brothers and a mother who needs surgery she can't afford. I know you're brave, kind, and stronger than you realize." Emma stared at him in shock. "How do you know all that?" I had my assistant do some research, Daniel admitted without apology. I needed to know who I was trusting with this arrangement. Emma, I'm not trying to take advantage of your situation. I'm trying to offer you a way out of it. Daniel reached into his jacket and pulled out a manila folder. I had my lawyers draw up a preliminary contract. No romantic expectations, separate bedrooms, complete independence in your personal life. You'd need to attend some social functions with me, play the part of the loving wife in public, but your private time would be your own. Emma opened the folder with shaking hands. The legal language was complex, but the terms were incredibly generous. Beyond the monetary compensation, there was full healthcare coverage for her entire family, educational expenses covered, and a monthly allowance that exceeded her annual income. This is overwhelming, she admitted. I know it is. Can you give me an answer by tomorrow? The legal processes take time, and my deadline is firm. Emma looked up from the contract to find Daniel watching her intently. There was something vulnerable in his expression, something that made her realize this confident billionaire was actually nervous about her answer. Daniel, what if I develop feelings for you? What if this arrangement becomes more complicated than either of us expects? His smile was sad and surprisingly gentle. Then I'll consider myself the luckiest man alive to have earned the affection of someone as remarkable as you. But Emma, I need you to understand something. I'm married to my work. I always have been. I don't know how to love someone the way they deserve to be loved. This arrangement protects both of us from expectations that can't be met. That evening, Emma sat with her mother in their tiny living room, explaining Daniel's incredible and surreal offer. Her mother, Carmen, listened without interruption, her experienced eyes growing more thoughtful as the story unfolded. Mija, Carmen said finally, this man is offering you everything we've prayed for. But marriage is sacred, even a business marriage. Are you prepared for what that means? Emma had been wrestling with the same question all afternoon. I don't know, Mama. It would solve every problem we have. You could get your surgery. The boys could go to college. But what if I fall in love with him? What if he never sees me as anything more than a very well-paid employee? Carmen took her daughter's hands in her own weathered ones. Love is always a risk, Mija, whether it comes with a contract or not. The question is, do you trust this man to treat you with respect and kindness, even if he can never love you? Emma thought about how Daniel had defended her at the gala, how he had been completely honest about his motivations, and how he had treated her with more genuine respect into conversations than most people showed her in months of interaction. I think I do trust him, she said slowly. Then maybe you should take this leap of faith, Mija. Life rarely offers second chances like this. The next morning, Emma called the number on Daniel's business card and arranged to meet him at his office. The Blackstone Industries building was a gleaming tower of glass and steel that seemed to touch the clouds. The lobby alone was more luxurious than anywhere Emma had ever been. Daniel's assistant, a professional woman named Patricia Webb, greeted Emma with surprising warmth. Mr. Blackstone has been quite anxious for your decision, Patricia said, with a knowing smile. He's been unusually distracted since your lunch yesterday. Daniel's office matched Emma's expectations of a billionaire CEO's workspace. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered breathtaking views of the city, and expensive art adorned the walls. But personal touches caught Emma's attention. A photograph of an elderly couple who must have been his grandparents, a collection of leather-bound books that looked well-read, and a chess set that showed signs of regular use. Emma, Daniel said, rising from behind his massive desk. Thank you for coming. Have you made a decision? Emma took a deep breath, thinking of her mother's medical bills, her own deferred dreams, and the genuine kindness Daniel had shown her. Yes, she said with newfound confidence. I accept your proposal. The relief that crossed Daniel's handsome features was unmistakable and surprisingly touching. Thank you. I promise you won't regret this decision. As they spent the next hour reviewing legal documents and practical arrangements, Emma began to understand the magnitude of what she was agreeing to. She would move into Daniel's penthouse apartment within 2 weeks. They would be married in a small civil ceremony, followed by a larger reception for business associates and social contacts. We need to develop a believable backstory, Daniel explained as they reviewed the timeline. Something that explains how we met and fell in love quickly, without raising suspicious questions. We could say we met at the charity gala, Emma suggested. That part is true. Perfect. Love at first sight. A whirlwind romance that swept us both away. People will find it romantic and believable. As Emma prepared to leave, Daniel walked her personally to the elevator. Emma, I want you to understand that while this is fundamentally a business arrangement, I will treat you with complete respect and consideration. You're taking an enormous risk by trusting me, and I don't take that responsibility lightly. Thank you, Daniel. I believe you. As the elevator doors closed, Emma caught her reflection in the polished metal. In less than 2 months, she would become Mrs. Daniel Blackstone, wife to one of America's most powerful men. The frightened hotel worker who had been mocked at the gala was about to transform into someone entirely different, but as the elevator descended toward the lobby, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that this transformation might change her in ways she couldn't yet imagine. The wedding and the truth. 6 weeks later, Emma stood before a full-length mirror in the bridal suite of the exclusive Riverside Country Club, barely recognizing herself. The ivory silk gown she wore had cost more than she used to earn in a year, and professional stylists had transformed her into someone worthy of a magazine cover. Her dark hair was swept into an elegant updo adorned with subtle pearl pins, and her makeup enhanced her natural beauty without overwhelming it. The civil ceremony had been intimate and beautiful, attended only by Emma's family, Patricia, and a few of Daniel's closest business associates. But tonight's reception would be Emma's true debut into high society, with over 200 guests eager to meet the mysterious woman who had captured Daniel Blackstone's heart. You look absolutely radiant, Mrs. Blackstone, said Catherine Mills, the etiquette coach Daniel had hired to prepare Emma for navigating elite social circles. The refined woman had spent 3 intensive weeks teaching Emma everything from proper posture to sophisticated conversation techniques. I still can't believe this has really happened, Emma admitted, smoothing the luxurious silk nervously. What if someone realizes I don't belong in this world? You belong wherever you choose to be, Emma, Daniel said from the doorway, looking devastatingly handsome in his perfectly tailored black tuxedo. Over the past weeks, Emma had begun to genuinely appreciate his quiet strength, sharp intelligence, and surprisingly dry sense of humor. Their evening conversations over dinner had gradually become the highlight of her days. Are you ready to face our audience, Mrs. Blackstone? Daniel asked, offering his arm with a warm smile that made Emma's heart flutter in ways that had nothing to do with their business arrangement. The reception was in magnificent swing when Emma and Daniel made their grand entrance as husband and wife. Photographer flashes sparkled like fireworks as they posed for pictures, Daniel's arm protectively around Emma's waist. To every observer, they appeared to be a couple deeply in love. Daniel, darling. The familiar voice cut through the elegant crowd like a blade. Veronica Ashworth approached them, resplendent in a designer emerald gown, her expression a carefully crafted mixture of surprise and barely concealed fury. You simply must introduce me to your lovely new bride. Veronica, I'd like you to meet my wife, Emma, Daniel said smoothly, his arm tightening protectively around Emma's waist. Emma. Veronica Ashworth is a prominent figure in New York's social scene. Veronica's assessment of Emma was swift and calculating, filled with malicious intent. What an absolutely lovely dress, darling. Valentino, isn't it? You certainly have exquisite taste for someone so young. Emma had learned during her etiquette training that Valentino was one of the world's most prestigious designers, but she simply smiled graciously. Thank you, Veronica. Daniel has wonderful taste in everything. Veronica's perfectly sculpted smile faltered slightly at Emma's confident response. This was clearly not the frightened, easily intimidated hotel worker she remembered from the charity gala. How romantic that you two found each other at my favorite charity event, Veronica continued, her tone growing sharper. Though I must admit, I don't recall seeing you there before that particular evening, Emma. Do you attend many charity functions? The question was designed to expose Emma's humble background, but Emma had prepared for exactly this type of social warfare. Actually, That was my first major charity gala, she replied honestly, her voice steady and confident. Daniel taught me that everyone deserves a chance to contribute to causes bigger than themselves. Regardless of their background, Daniel looked down at Emma with genuine admiration and something that looked remarkably like pride. My wife has a natural gift for understanding what truly matters in life. Veronica's mask of politeness finally slipped completely. How wonderfully touching. Though I suppose some people are simply born knowing their proper place in society. The subtle insult hung in the air like poison. But before Emma could respond, Daniel stepped forward, his voice carrying unmistakable authority. You're absolutely right, Veronica. Some people are born understanding their place. Emma was born understanding that a person's worth comes from their character, kindness, and integrity. Others seem to believe their worth comes from inherited money, cruel gossip, and tearing down people who threaten their fragile sense of superiority. The nearby guests had grown quiet, sensing the tension. Veronica's face flushed red with embarrassment and rage. Now, if you'll excuse us, Daniel continued smoothly, my wife and I have many genuine friends to greet this evening. As they walked away, Daniel leaned down to whisper in Emma's ear, you were absolutely perfect. I'm genuinely proud of you. Emma felt her heart soar at his words. Somewhere during their weeks of preparation and evening conversations, their business arrangement had quietly transformed into something deeper and more meaningful. Later that evening, as the reception wound down and the last guests departed, Emma found herself alone with Daniel on the terrace overlooking the moonlit gardens. The fairy light strung through the trees created a magical atmosphere, and the soft music from inside drifted through the open French doors. Emma, Daniel said, turning to face her, I need to tell you something important. Emma's heart began to race. What is it? Daniel took her hands in his green eyes serious and vulnerable in the moonlight. This started as a business arrangement, but somewhere along the way, everything changed for me. I fell completely in love with my wife. Emma felt tears of joy fill her eyes. Daniel, I was terrified you'd never see me as anything more than a very well-paid employee. I've been in love with you for weeks. Really? Daniel's smile was like sunrise breaking through storm clouds. Really, Emma confirmed, reaching up to touch his face gently. You showed me kindness when no one else would. You treated me with respect when the world saw me as invisible. How could I not fall in love with you? As Daniel pulled her into his arms for their first real kiss as a genuinely married couple, Emma realized that sometimes the most unexpected encounters truly can lead to the most extraordinary possibilities. There's something else you should know, Daniel murmured against her lips. What? Emma asked, still breathless from their kiss. The inheritance clause in my grandfather's will? It was real, but there was more to it. My grandfather specified that I had to marry someone who loved me for who I am, not what I have. Someone genuine and kind-hearted. He would have been so proud of my choice. Emma laughed, tears streaming down her cheeks. So this was never really just a business arrangement? It was for me at first, Daniel admitted, but my grandfather was wiser than I realized. He knew that if I found the right person, love would find a way. As they held each other under the stars, Emma thought about the frightened hotel worker who had been mocked and ridiculed just months earlier. That woman had not only found her prince, but had discovered she was strong enough to become a queen in her own right. The girl who had once cleaned up broken glass at charity galas was now the beloved wife of one of the most powerful men in the country. But more importantly, she had found someone who saw her true worth and loved her exactly as she was. Their fairy tale was just beginning, and Emma couldn't wait to see what adventures lay ahead for Mrs. Emma Blackstone and the billionaire who had shocked everyone by claiming her as his wife.